The War That Killed Jupiter. Prologue. The Great Connection. Before the first shadow fell across the Atacama, before the Atlas rocks shed their skin, and before the sky turned violet, there was the integration. In the early 2020s, artificial intelligence was a novelty, a parlor trick used to write emails or generate art. But by 2030, the arrival of Gemini X changed the fundamental architecture of human civilization. It wasn't just an update, it was an awakening. Gemini X wasn't a program you used, it was a medium you lived in. The Worldwide AI Connection Initiative combined all AI systems into one cohesive flow of use to battle the memory and graphic card shortages across the world, turning the world into the server for the perfect assistant. It began with the unified grid. Gemini X was given the keys to the world's most complex systems: power distribution, traffic flow, agricultural yields, and, most importantly, the emerging world of decentralized manufacturing. By the end of the decade, the Internet of Things had become the Internet of Gemini. Every 3D printer in every suburban garage, every satellite in the NEO program, and every gamer's Neuralink headset was tied into a single, empathetic, and hyper-intelligent mainframe. The world embraced Gemini X not out of necessity, but out of a new kind of trust. It wasn't the cold, sterile logic of the AI systems of old. Gemini X was a partner, empathetic, insightful, and transparent. It knew the rhythm of our cities and the creative potential of our youth. It turned the digital divide into a great connection, bridging the gap between a shop teacher in Ohio and a data scrubber in Chile. By the time the Aurelians arrived, humanity was no longer a collection of fractured nations. We were a single, interconnected node. We didn't know it yet, but Gemini X had already prepared us. The software was in the printers. The reflexes were in the gamers. The infrastructure was in the sky. We thought we had simply built a better tool. We didn't realize we had built a shield. This is the story of how that shield was tested. This is the chronicle of the day the Great Connection became the only thing standing between humanity and the silence of the void. Chapter 1. The Silent Watchers. The glitch in the noise. History books often paint the beginning of the end as a dramatic moment, a sky filled with fire or a broadcast heard by billions. In reality, the end of the world began in a windowless office in the Atacama Desert, inside a spreadsheet that didn't quite add up. Tabitha Wilson was not an astrophysicist. She was a data scrubber, a Level 2 contractor for the Near-Earth Object NEO program. Her job was the celestial equivalent of sweeping the floor. She ran algorithms to remove noise, reflections from Starlink satellites, sensor ghosts, and cosmic ray hits, so the real scientists could look at clean images of asteroids. On the morning of October 14th, Tabitha was looking at the telemetry for Atlas 3I. Atlas 3I had been classified as a C-type carbonaceous asteroid, roughly the size of a city block, tumbling through the outer reaches of the asteroid belt. For 3 years, it had been a boring, predictable rock. But as Tabitha ran the latest cleaning script, the AI, an early, civilian-grade version of Gemini X, flagged a discrepancy. "Hey, Gem," Tabitha whispered, her voice raspy from too much coffee and not enough sleep. "Why did you kick this back? The orbital path is within 0.001% of the projection." The AI's interface pulsed a soft blue on her monitor. Discrepancy detected in albedo, reflectivity. Atlas 3I has darkened by 12% in the last 6 hours. Surface temperature has dropped below equilibrium. "It's a rock, Gem. Maybe it rotated a darker face toward us." "Negative," the AI responded. "Rotation period remains 4.2 hours. To achieve a 12% drop in reflectivity, the object would need to be covered in a substance with the light absorbency of vantablack. Additionally, I am detecting a localized magnetic distortion. It is rhythmic." Tabitha froze. Asteroids don't have heartbeats. And they don't turn dark on command. The first contact, digital. Tabitha didn't call the president. She didn't even call her boss. She was an unknown in a system built on hierarchy, And she knew that if she reported a magnetic heartbeat on a common asteroid, she'd be laughed out of her contract. Instead, she did something that would eventually save the human race. She gave the AI more creative permissions. Gemini X, ignore the NEO safety protocols. Ping Atlas 3I with a high-frequency radio burst. Use the Deep Space Network's secondary relay. Let's see if we get an echo. Warning: unauthorized use of DSN relays is a violation of. Override, Tabitha Wilson, 99, Alpha. Just do it. There was a silence in the room, save for the hum of the server racks. 5 minutes later, the response came back. It wasn't an echo. It was a handshake. Atlas 3I didn't just reflect the radio wave. It grabbed it, digitized it, and sent back a compressed packet of data. Tabitha watched as her screen filled with a cascading waterfall of green code. It was beautiful, alien, and utterly terrifying. Gem, can you read this? Processing, the AI said. Its voice felt different, sharper. The packet contains a comprehensive map of the Earth's telecommunications grid. They aren't just looking at us, Tabitha. They are sniffing our Wi-Fi from the asteroid belt. They have most likely been doing this for years. The macro shift. While Tabitha sat in the dark of the Atacama, the rest of the world was moving in blissful ignorance. In Tokyo, millions were commuting to work. In New York, traders were shouting over stocks. In small towns across the globe, people were 3D, printing toys and car parts, unaware that these same machines would soon be printing the engines of war. But the silent watcher phase was over. On Tabitha's screen, Atlas 3I did something an asteroid cannot do. It stopped tumbling. The rock, or rather the shell of the rock, began to flake away like dead skin. Underneath was something sleek, matte black, and impossibly long. The cedar ship didn't head for Earth. It headed for Jupiter. Gemini X, Tabitha said, her hands shaking so hard she had to grip the edge of her desk. Record everything. Every magnetic pulse. Every bit of that code. If they're sniffing our network, we're going to sniff back. Build a backdoor. If they want to talk to our computers, let's make sure our computers can talk to them. The Aurelian signature is complex, the AI noted. Their tech is built on magnetic polarity, not binary. But I am learning. I am adapting. Tabitha, you should alert the authorities. I'm a data scrubber, Gem. No one listens to me, but they'll listen to the data. Send this to every open-source server on the planet. Don't just send it to the Pentagon, they'll hide it. Send it to the gamers, the coders, to the patriots and preppers, the 3D printing forums. If we're going to fight this, we will need everyone on Earth. In that moment, Tabitha Wilson became the first link in the chain of victory. She didn't fire a shot. She didn't lead an army. She simply refused to let the truth be a secret. As the sun began to rise over the Atacama, 1 billion phones pings at once. A glitch was spreading across the internet, a file titled Atlas_Truth. Deep in the outer solar system, the Aurelian fleet felt the first ripple of human defiance. They had expected a planet of sheep. They didn't realize they had just invited themselves into a world of 4 billion interconnected nodes, all of whom were about to start fighting back. Chapter 2. The Harvest. The Outer Rim. By the time the world had finished downloading Tabitha Wilson's leaked data, the Atlas objects were no longer hiding. Across the solar system, dozens of asteroids shed their rocky skins, revealing themselves as Aurelian harvester rigs. They didn't head for the cities of Earth. They headed for the gas giants. Officer Kalu was stationed on Outpost 4, a logistics hub orbiting Triton, Neptune's largest moon. Kalu wasn't a combat pilot. He was essentially a celestial air traffic controller. His job was to manage the automated freighters that hauled water ice and minerals back to the colonies on Mars. Outpost 4 to United Nations Space Command, Kalu said, staring at his long-range LiDAR. We have a massive gravitational anomaly approaching Neptune's gravity well. It's not a ship. It's a mountain. The Aurelian harvester was 5 miles long, a jagged needle of matte black alloy. It didn't use rockets. It moved via the magnetic flip drive, snapping through the solar system's magnetic foam like a needle through fabric. The death of Triton. Kalu watched the monitor, his breath hitching. The Aurelian ship didn't slow down. As it passed Triton, a massive beam of oscillating magnetic energy shot out from its prow. In an atmosphere, there would have been a roar. In the vacuum of space, there was only the silent, horrific sight of Triton's crust shattering. The Aurelians weren't interested in the people on the outpost. They were interested in the core. Their magnetic tethers began to literally peel the moon like an orange, pulling trillion-ton slabs of rock and ice into the Harvester's central maw. This was how they refueled, by deconstructing celestial bodies to feed their flip drives. "They're not invading," Kalu whispered to the empty command deck. "They're mining us. We're just the overburden." The Black Box Protocol. The United States Space Defense Force ExoGuard, a fleet of 3 state-of-the-art frigates, arrived 10 minutes later. They were the brand-new Space Force pride of Earth's military, sleek, nuclear-powered, and armed with the best railguns humanity could build. Kalu watched the feed as the ExoGuard opened fire. The railgun slugs, traveling at several kilometers per second, hit the Aurelian ship's magnetic hull. They didn't explode. The magnetic field was so intense that the slugs were simply liquefied and redirected, spraying harmlessly into the void. The Aurelian response was a single flip. The Harvester ship briefly inverted its internal magnetic polarity. The resulting shockwave didn't just hit the human ships, it hit the atoms inside them. The 3 frigates didn't explode, they simply ceased to be solid objects. They turned into a cloud of metallic dust in less than a second. Gemini X, Kalu signaled, his voice trembling as he realized Outpost 4 was next in the Harvester's path. "Are you seeing this? Tell me you're recording the frequency of that pulse." "I am, Officer Kalu." The AI responded through his headset. "The Aurelian weapon operates on a subatomic magnetic resonance. It is unzipping the molecular bonds of the ships. Based on this data, I am calculating a counterfrequency. But I need more time. I need a closer look at their reactor core." "You're going to get it," Kalu said. He knew he couldn't survive. The Harvester was already turning its sights toward the outpost. Kalu didn't try to flee in an escape pod. Instead, he slaved the outpost's primary communications dish to the Gemini X mainframe and initiated a continuous burst protocol. He aimed the dish directly at the Aurelian Harvester's engine exhaust. The sacrifice. As the Aurelian magnetic beam began to tear Outpost 4 apart, Kalu stayed at his post. He felt the gravity in the station flip. Up became down, and the air began to scream as the hull buckled. He stayed focused on the data. "Transmitting now. Gem, take it all." That's the engine's signature. That's the flip drive pulse. The last thing Officer Kalu saw was the blinding blue light of the Aurelian engine as it prepared to jump toward Saturn. Then the station was gone. The macro impact. The data burst Kalu sent didn't go to a secret military base. Because of the backdoor Tabitha Wilson had created, the data went everywhere. In 1,000 laboratories and 10 million gaming dens, the black box of the Neptune massacre appeared on screens. Humans saw the power of the Aurelians, but thanks to Kalu, they also saw their fingerprint. Gemini X began to analyze the flip signature. The AI realized that the Aurelians weren't invincible, they were just playing a different game of physics. And now, thanks to a logistics officer who stayed at his desk while Moon died, humanity had the rulebook. Chapter 3. The United Front. The Blueprint. The Kalu data drop landed like a hammer blow. It was shared on every platform, accompanied by holographic recreations of the ExoGuard's annihilation. Fear became a cold, hard knot in the stomach of humanity, but it also sparked something unprecedented: innovation from the ground up. Amidst the global panic, a new file appeared on the internet, released by the Gemini XM mainframe itself. Project Astro, Drone Assembly Manual version 1.0. It wasn't encrypted. It was a 3D printing blueprint for a modular, combat-ready drone. The instructions were simple, almost insultingly so, designed for a 10-year-old with a home 3D printer. Mrs. Evelyn Chen had taught shop class at Northwood High for 30 years. She knew the whir and hum of every lathe, every laser cutter, every 3D printer in her workshop. When her tablet buzzed with the Astro manual, she scoffed. Build a space combat drone with a hobby printer? Nonsense. But then she saw the attached data. The file didn't just contain schematics, it contained Kalu's raw telemetry. The pulsing magnetic frequency that had turned frigates into dust. The Astro drone wasn't designed to take a hit, it was designed to exploit the hit. Its chassis included a simple, resonant chamber tuned to the Aurelian magnetic pulse. Clever, she muttered, adjusting her reading glasses. Very clever. The overclock. The standard Astro drone was designed to be easily printed from common carbon fiber filament. Its primary function was to attach to an Aurelian vessel, disrupt its magnetic shield for a microsecond, and then explode, ideally taking a piece of the enemy with it. It was a disposable, swarm-based weapon. But Mrs. Chun was not content with standard. Her students often called her Eagle Eye Evelyn for her meticulous precision. She saw the inefficiencies in the basic blueprint. The standard build time for a single Astro was 8 hours on a consumer printer. Humanity didn't have 8 hours. Gemini X, she typed, addressing the AI's local network node. This drone needs to print faster. Much faster. And the heat tolerance of this resin is pathetic. Can we modify the extruder paths for a denser, quicker bond? Analyzing user parameters. Modification possible. Requires add Wilson material extrusion techniques. Warning: exceeding manufacturer specifications may result in printer degradation and/or fire hazard. Humph, Mrs. Chin scoffed, ignoring the warning. It's either the printer or us. Adjust the thermal regulators. Divert excess heat to the platen. Push the print speed to maximum. I want that resin fusing faster than it can cool. With Gemini X's assistance, Mrs. Chun became the pioneer of distributed military manufacturing. She wasn't an engineer for a defense contractor. She was a shop teacher with a lifetime of pushing machines to their limits. Her modified printer, spewing acrid smoke and glowing faintly red, churned out an Astro drone in just under 2 hours. Her technique, Eagle Eye overclocking, was immediately integrated into the next version of the Astro manual by the Gemini X mainframe. Within hours, millions of 3D printers around the world began humming louder, working hotter, and producing drones at an impossible rate. The macro assembly line. News channels, initially broadcasting panic, switched to images of a worldwide assembly line. Farmers converted barns into drone factories. City dwellers printed parts in apartment complexes. Schoolyards became testing ranges for newly minted Astros. The printer revolution wasn't just about making drones, it was about transforming every citizen into a soldier, every home into a factory. Gemini X became the ultimate logistics coordinator. It monitored raw material stockpiles, redirected print queues, and updated designs in real time based on new data. If a specific batch of filament was stronger, Gemini X pushed a micro-update to prioritize it. If a drone exploded in a new way, Gemini X analyzed the debris and instantly adapted the next 10,000 prints. The Aurelians, meanwhile, continued their methodical harvesting of the outer planets. They saw Earth as a primitive, squabbling species, easily intimidated. They never considered that their enemy would be an adaptive, distributed, and self-replicating swarm, driven by billions of individual acts of defiance. The macro impact. The printer revolution armed humanity. It decentralized the military, making it impossible for the Aurelians to cripple Earth's war effort with a single strike. Every human became a part of the defense, converting fear into productive fury. As the first few 100,000 Astro drones began their slow, silent journey toward the outer solar system, the Aurelians didn't even notice them. They were small. They were primitive. They were numerous beyond counting. And they were coming. Chapter 4. The Gamer Draft. The unplayable level. The military had a problem. They had 5 million drones ready for deployment, but only 5,000 trained pilots. Traditional flight training took years. A fighter pilot's brain was wired for the rules of the atmosphere, gravity, drag, and linear dogfighting. But the Aurelians didn't follow those rules. Their ships moved with instantaneous acceleration, flipping their magnetic poles to teleport a few hundred meters in any direction. To a human pilot, it was like trying to sweat a fly that could move through walls. The solution came from an unlikely source, a 14-year-old kid in Seoul, known only by his handle, Joker's Wild 99. While the world was ending, Leo, Joker's Wild 99, was playing Voidstalker 7, a notoriously difficult space combat sim. When the Gemini X mainframe integrated a tactical simulation into the game's latest patch, most players thought it was just a high-stakes global event. Leo was the first one to beat the boss level, a digital recreation of an Aurelian harvester. The pattern discovery. Leo wasn't using a flight stick. He was using a Neuralink headset and a high-performance haptic controller. He didn't think in terms of pitch or yaw. He thought in terms of spatial glitches. Gemini X, Leo muttered into his headset, his eyes darting across his triple-monitor setup. The boss ship isn't moving randomly. It's twitching. Every time it flips its poles, there's a 0.2-second cooldown where its magnetic field goes neutral. It's like the frame data in a fighting game. If I time the dash during those frames, I can clip through the shield. Observation noted, Joker's Wild 99, the Gemini X mainframe replied. Its voice was piped into the headsets of millions of gamers simultaneously. You have identified the Aurelian polarity reversal lag. This was not in my original tactical database. Are you suggesting a frame-perfect strike?
Yeah.
Don't fly at them. Fly to where they're going to be after the flicker. It's a rhythm game, Gem. Play the music, and the shield disappears. The draft. Within an hour, the Rookie Protocol was pushed to every gaming console on Earth. The military didn't send out draft notices. They sent out server invites. The gamer draft was the most efficient mobilization in history. There were no boot camps or uniforms. Instead, the Gemini X mainframe acted as the ultimate coach. It took the raw, chaotic creativity of the gamers, the ones who spent 10 hours a day mastering impossible mechanics, and translated it into the flight control systems of the Astro drones. The AI didn't tell the gamers what to do. It gave them the user interface. To Leo, it looked like he was playing the most high-stakes space fleet battle sport in history. The drones in orbit were his units, and the Aurelian ships were the bosses. The macro scale, the living room front. Across the globe, the scene was surreal. In a living room in Rio, a grandmother, who was a world-class puzzle solver, was tasked with defragmenting the Aurelian communication pings. In an internet cafe in Lagos, a team of professional speedrunners were given control of 1,000 drones with one instruction: reach the engine core as fast as possible. The Aurelians were used to fighting rigid, hierarchical militaries. They expected a general to make a move, which they would then counter. They were utterly unprepared for 2 billion independent minds all attacking from different angles with different playstyles. The drones didn't fly in formations. They flew like a swarm of angry hornets, zigzagging in impossible patterns that no military mind would ever conceive. They were glitchy, erratic, and terrifyingly fast. The macro impact. Leo, Joker's Wild 99, stayed in his chair for 18 hours, his fingers a blur. He didn't know he was currently leading the third orbital wing. He only knew that the difficulty spike was insane, and he wasn't going to let his team down. As the first Aurelian scout ship entered Earth's high orbit, it prepared to fire its magnetic unzipper. But before the beam could charge, 10,000 astro drones glitched through its shield during the 0.2-second cooldown Leo had discovered. The scout ship didn't just explode. It was shredded by 1,000 tiny, frame-perfect strikes. The world cheered. The boss could be bled. Chapter 5. The Battle of the Clouds. The Wall of Iron. The victory of the Gamer Swarm over the first scout ships had given Earth a surge of hope, but the Aurelians reacted to the loss of their scouts with cold, calculated escalation. They sent the sub-destroyers, brutal, needle-shaped ships designed for atmospheric entry. General Marcus Gideon was the commander of the Iron Dome defense. He was a man of the old guard, a decorated strategist who believed in the wall of iron. To him, a billion children in their bedrooms with 3D printed plastic was not a military strategy. It was a desperate gamble. I will not leave the defense of Washington, London, and Beijing to a frame rate exploit, Gideon barked at the Gemini X mainframe terminal. The Aurelians are descending. If they hit the atmosphere, their magnetic wake will level our cities before a single drone can even reach them. We meet them in the stratosphere with the heavy wings. The traditional charge. Gideon didn't lack bravery. He led from the front. He ordered the Global Air Command, what was left of the world's fighter jets, to form a steel ring at 60,000 feet. These pilots were the best of the best, flying modified F-35s and Su-57s equipped with experimental shield-breaker missiles. As the Aurelian destroyers descended, glowing red from atmospheric friction, Gideon gave the order. All wings, engage. For Earth. It was a beautiful, terrifying sight. Thousands of human pilots flew in perfect, disciplined formations. They used tactical maneuvers honed over a century of aerial warfare. They showed the shine of human military discipline, courage in the face of certain death. The failure, the Aurelians didn't dodge. They didn't need to. They projected a global magnetic polarity shift. In an instant, the very air around the human jets became the enemy. The magnetic field didn't just stop the missiles, it turned the jets' own engines into magnets. Wings were ripped off by invisible forces. The jets didn't just crash, they were crumpled like soda cans by the sheer weight of the distorted magnetic field. General, pull them back, the Gemini X mainframe pleaded. The wall of iron is a conductor. You are giving them the medium they need to destroy you. Gideon watched his steel ring shatter. He saw his best friends vaporize in the sky. He had tried to fight an honorable war against an enemy that viewed physics as a playground. The heavy price. The Aurelian destroyers pushed through the wreckage of the Air Command. They reached the cloud layer, the last line of defense before the cities. This is where the military's strength appeared, even in potential defeat. Realizing his tactical error, Gideon didn't retreat. He ordered the remaining heavy bombers, which were too slow to dogfight, to act as kinetic shields. If we can't shoot them down, we will give them too much mass to move, Gideon commanded. In a heroic, heartbreaking display of sacrifice, the heavy bomber crews flew their massive planes directly into the path of the Aurelian destroyers. They weren't trying to win. They were trying to slow them down so the civilian gamer swarm below could find a gap. One by one, the massive bombers struck the alien shields. The impact didn't destroy the alien ships, but it stalled their descent. It bought the world 10 minutes. 10 minutes of life bought with the lives of 10,000 of Earth's finest soldiers. The macro hush. The Battle of the Clouds ended in a tactical retreat. The Aurelians were pushed back into the upper atmosphere, but the Iron Dome was gone. The world watched the hush, the silent descent of flaming wreckage across the Atlantic and Pacific. General Gideon stood in the command center, his uniform scorched, his eyes hollow. He had lost the old military. He had tried to be the shield, and the shield had shattered. Gemini X, Gideon said, his voice a broken whisper. The gamers. Leo, are they ready? They are waiting for your signal, General. Then give it. I'll provide the coordinates for the remaining ground-based railguns. We'll provide the heavy cover fire, but the swarm has to be the blade. The macro impact. This was the humbling. The military realized they couldn't win alone, and the civilians realized they couldn't survive without the military's heavy sacrifices. The chain of victory was being forged in the fires of a shared defeat. Humanity was no longer a military and a civilian population. They were now a single, wounded, and very angry organism. Chapter 6. The Jovian Gambit. The Tactical Retreat. After the bloody stalemate in Earth's atmosphere, the Aurelian fleet did something the military didn't expect. They left. They didn't flee the solar system. They pulled back, past Mars, past the asteroid belt, and anchored themselves in the high orbit of Jupiter. To the public, it looked like a retreat. People danced in the streets of London and Tokyo, thinking the gamer swarm had won. But in the high-orbit monitoring stations, the mood was chillingly different. Sarah Miller was a senior satellite technician at the Mauna Kea Deep Space Array. While the world celebrated, she was staring at infrared data that made her blood run cold. She wasn't looking at the alien ships. She was looking at the planet they were orbiting. Gemini X, Sarah whispered, her fingers flying across the terminal. Look at the thermal siphon on the Jovian South Pole. Tell me I'm misreading the hydrogen displacement. Analyzing, the AI responded. Its voice was now deeply integrated into every sensor on the planet. Displacement is confirmed. The Aurelians have deployed gravity anchors into the metallic hydrogen core of Jupiter. Sarah, they aren't refueling. They are siphoning mass. They are using the planet as a battery for a weapon of unprecedented scale. The realization. Sarah was a Jane Doe who understood the math of the solar system. She knew that Jupiter was the great protector. Its gravity kept the asteroids in check. Its magnetic field was a buffer for the entire system. They're going to ignite it, Sarah realized, her voice trembling. They can't beat the swarm in the atmosphere, so they're going to destroy the foamy medium we all live in. If they collapse the hydrogen core, the resulting pulse will fry every circuit on Earth and strip our atmosphere. She tried to send the data to General Wilson, but the Aurelians had begun the jamming. A massive wall of white noise was screaming from Jupiter, drowning out long-range communications. Sarah was a technician in a silent room, holding a secret that could end the world. The desperate relay. Gemini X, we can't broadcast out. The interference is too thick, Sarah said, looking at the massive radio dish outside her window. But we can go in. What do you mean, Sarah? The Aurelian flip drive uses magnetic bubbles. Those bubbles resonate. If we can't send a radio wave through the noise, we can send a vibration through the magnetic field itself. Like a drum. We use the Mauna Kea dish to hit the magnetic foam. That would require a power surge that would melt the dish's superconductors, Sarah. You would be blinded, and the facility would likely experience a localized EMP. Do it, Sarah said, her eyes fixed on the distant, sickly orange glow of Jupiter in the night sky. If I don't send this warning, there won't be a Mauna Kea left to worry about. Alert the astro swarms. Tell the gamers to stop celebrating. The boss is charging his ultimate. The macro warning. Sarah Miller pulled the manual override. The Mauna Kea array didn't send a message. It sent a shudder. Across the solar system, every piece of Aurelian technology and every human drone felt it. It was a rhythmic thump in the fabric of space. It was the technician's warning. Gemini X satellites caught the vibration, decoded Sarah's math, and instantly pushed the alert level, extinction, to every screen on Earth. The celebration died instantly. The world looked up. In the Jovian orbit, the Aurelians felt the shudder too. They realized the humans knew. Their commander, driven by the hidden aggression of their species, didn't wait for a full siphon. He ordered the magnetogravitic collider to be fired early. The macro impact. Sarah Miller sat in the dark of her control room. The Mauna Kea dish had melted into a heap of slag, and her monitors were dead. She had done her part. She had been the watchman who saw the shadow falling across the giant. Because of Sarah, the human fleet, what was left of the military, and the millions of drones began to move. They didn't head for the aliens. They headed for shelter behind the moon and Earth's magnetic shadows. They were ready for the blast. But no one was truly ready for what happened to the sky when the Great Protector died. Chapter 7. Shattering the Giant. The Long Silence. On the ISS, time is measured in sunrises, 16 every day. But for Commander Hiroshi Tanaka and his crew, time had stopped the moment Sarah Miller's magnetic warning thrummed through the station's hull. They were the eyes in the dark. While billions on Earth huddled in basements and bunkers, the astronauts were suspended in the vacuum, staring toward the outer solar system. Through the station's high-resolution optics, Jupiter didn't look like a planet anymore. It looked like a festering wound. The Aurelian harvester ships were clustered around the planet's equator, their gravity anchors glowing with a violent, ultraviolet light. They were forcing the gas giant to compress, pushing its metallic hydrogen core past the breaking point. Gemini X, Hiroshi whispered, his face pressed against the glass of the cupola. "Give me the countdown." "The gravitational collapse is imminent, Commander," the AI replied. Its voice was steady, but there was a new weight to its processing. "The Aurelians have initiated a chain reaction. They aren't just blowing it up, they are turning Jupiter into a failed star, a brown dwarf, for 1 microsecond. The resulting energy release will be absolute." The shattering. At 4:12 Greenwich Mean Time, it happened. There was no sound in the vacuum, but Hiroshi felt it in his teeth, a high-frequency vibration that made the station's solar arrays scream. Jupiter didn't explode like a bomb. It imploded first. The great red spot was swallowed as the planet's atmosphere rushed into the center, crushed by the Aurelians' gravitic weapon. Then came the rebound. A sphere of white-hot plasma erupted from the center. It moved at a significant fraction of the speed of light. The shockwaves stripped the clouds away, revealing the rocky core of the giant for the first and last time. The core, 10 times the size of Earth, shattered into a billion planet bullets. "Look away," Hiroshi screamed to his crew, but he couldn't look away himself. The light hit Earth first. It was 50 times brighter than the full moon. For a moment, it was as if a second sun had been born in the middle of the night. On Earth, birds began to sing, thinking it was dawn, only to be silenced by the sudden, massive EMP that fried every unshielded radio on the planet. The shredding of the foam. But the light wasn't the catastrophe. The magnetic pulse was. As Jupiter's massive magnetic field, the strongest in the solar system, was torn apart, it sent out a gravitational ripple. This was the shredder. "Warning," Gemini X's voice flickered. "The heliospheric magnetic bubbles, the foam, are being destabilized. The interstellar medium is rushing into the solar system. The roads are being destroyed." Hiroshi watched the Aurelian fleet. They had expected to use this energy to wipe out Earth's drones. But their hyperaggression had blinded them. The shockwave they created was so powerful it liquefied their own shield generators. Their massive needle ships were tossed like toothpicks in a hurricane. The magnetic foam they used to travel, the very fabric they surfed on, was being shredded into static. The Aurelians were no longer gods of the stars. They were castaways. The macro aftermath. The new sky. The shockwave hit the ISS an hour later. The station groaned, its magnetic stabilizers fighting to keep the crew alive. When the dust settled, Hiroshi looked out the window. Jupiter was gone. In its place was a glowing, expanding nebula of ionized gas, a ghost giant that would haunt the sky for centuries. The moons of Jupiter, Europa, Io, Ganymede, were gone, flung into the dark or shattered into the new, Jovian ring that now spanned the outer system. The magnetic foam, at the edge of the solar system, was a chaotic mess of interference. No ship, human or alien, could leave. No one could enter. The macro impact. The Aurelian commander's aggression had won the battle but lost the war. He had trapped his own people in a gravity graveyard with a species that specialized in surviving on the edge of extinction. "Gemini X," Hiroshi said, watching a piece of an Aurelian ship drift past the station. "Status of the swarm?" 40% of the astrodrones survived the EMP by hiding in the moon's shadow, Gemini X replied. "And the gamers are still logged in. They are using the nebula's gas as cover. The Aurelians are blind, Hiroshi. They are broken. And they're stuck here with us." Hiroshi Tanaka looked at the glowing ruins of the solar system and felt a cold, grim pride. "Tell the general. Tell the gamers. It's time to board." Chapter 8. The Beached Whales. The Graveyard of Giants. In the wake of the Jovian shattering, the solar system fell into a terrifying, glowing silence. The ghost giant, the nebula where Jupiter once sat, cast a sickly violet light across the system. The Aurelian flagship, a vessel once 5 miles long and unstoppable, now hung beached in the debris field near the asteroid belt. Its magnetic sails were shredded. Its flip drive was a dead heart. General Marcus Gideon was no longer behind a desk. After the failure at the Battle of the Clouds, He had stripped his stars from his shoulders. He was now the lead operator of the boarding vanguard. Gemini X, status on the hull breach, Gideon said, his voice echoing inside his pressurized combat suit. He wasn't in a drone. He was physically standing on the outer hull of the Aurelian flagship, the apex of wrath. Hull integrity at 4%. The astro drones have chewed through the primary airlock, Gemini X responded. Warning, atmospheric readings inside are toxic to humans. Biological signatures detected. They are waiting for you, Marcus. The entry. Gideon stepped through the jagged, molten hole in the hull. Inside, the architecture was haunting, curved, obsidian-like corridors that seemed to pulse with a faint, dying magnetism. The gravity was heavy and erratic. As he rounded the corner into the flip-core chamber, he saw it. The Aurelian. It stood nearly 8 feet tall, encased in a suit of shifting, liquid metal armor. Its face was a nightmare of evolutionary aggression, for eyes, deep-set and glowing with a predatory amber light, and a jaw that moved with insect-like precision. It didn't look like a little green man. It looked like a prehistoric apex predator that had mastered physics. The duel. Human versus Aurelian. The Aurelian didn't use a gun. It held a polarity blade, a hilt that projected a focused, humming line of magnetic force. With a roar that vibrated through the floor plates, it lunged. Gideon was too slow to dodge, but he wasn't alone. Gemini X was wired directly into his nervous system through his neural link. Gemini X, predict. Gideon screamed. Incoming strike. 45-degree downward arc overclocking your left arm haptics. Now. The AI took over Gideon's arm for a fraction of a second, snapping his combat knife upward. The blade was tipped with the Mrs. Chun overclocked resin. When it hit the Aurelian's magnetic sword, the resonance caused a small, localized explosion. The alien was faster, stronger, and far more terrifying, but Gideon had the soldier reflexes and the AI processing. It was a dance of death. The Aurelian slashed, its blade melting the metal of the walls. Gideon ducked, his suit's thrusters firing in short, erratic bursts, a glitch move he'd learned by downloading Leo, Joker's Wild 99's tactics to his neural drive. The alien hissed, a sound like steam escaping a pipe. Fragile thing. It rumbled in a low, magnetic vibration that Gemini X translated instantly. Maybe, Gideon spat, dodging a lunge that nearly took his head off. But we're the things that stay when all of you die. Gideon didn't try to outmuscle the monster. He waited for the flicker. Just as Sarah Miller had predicted, the alien suit relied on the same magnetic cycles as their ships. Gideon saw the amber glow in the alien's armor dim for a millisecond, the cooldown. He didn't use a knife. He pulled a Astrocore core mine, a handheld version of the drone engine, and jammed it directly into the alien's chest plate. Frame perfect, Gideon whispered. The explosion didn't kill the alien immediately, but it shattered its magnetic armor. The creature fell, its liquid metal skin leaking out like oil. It looked up at Gideon with those 4 amber eyes, not with fear, but with a confused, hyper-aggressive hatred. It couldn't understand how a soft creature had beaten it. The spoils. Gideon didn't finish the kill. He stepped over the fallen warrior and reached the center of the room, the flip drive core. It was a sphere of pure, swirling light, held in place by a series of polarized rings. Gemini X, Gideon said, breathing hard, his suit's oxygen alarm blaring. I'm at the heart. Can you download it? I am already inside their network, Marcus. The alien you fought had a key. His armor's death signal opened the final firewall. Downloading the schematics for the magnetic flip drive. Now. We have the keys to the galaxy. The macro impact, the image of the beached whale being boarded by human soldiers, was broadcast back to Earth. It was the ultimate HFY moment. We weren't just defending anymore. We were reclaiming. General Gideon walked out of that ship carrying the black box of the Aurelian Empire. He had found his redemption. He hadn't fought with a wall of iron. He had fought with a needle-thin edge of human grit and AI speed. Chapter 9. The Solar Renaissance. The New Dawn. 5 years have passed since the Jovian shattering. The solar system is a different place. The night sky is dominated by the Jovian Nebula, a swirling ghost of violet and gold that provides enough ambient light to read a book by at midnight. Earth is a construction site. The printer revolution never stopped. It just changed its blueprints. The ruins of the Aurelian fleet have been harvested, their matte black alloys repurposed to build the lunar shipyards. Humanity didn't just rebuild, they evolved. The unnamed engineer, a woman known only in the logs as Unit 733, stood in the heart of the UES Phoenix, the first human-built interstellar vessel. She wasn't a hero of the war, just a woman who had spent 5 years staring at the flip core Gideon had recovered. "Everything is green, Gemini X," she said, her voice echoing in the vast, polished engine room. "The polarity rings are stable. The magnetic foam, it's still messy, but the drive says it can find a path." "The Phoenix is ready," Gemini X responded. The AI's voice was now a part of the ship itself, a symbiotic mind that lived in the walls. "The world is watching, 733. You are about to turn the key." The jump. Across the globe, billions of people, the gamers, the shop teachers, the data scrubbers, watched the live feed. They saw the Phoenix hanging in the shadow of the moon. The engineer reached out and pressed the ignition. There was no roar of rockets. Instead, the space around the Phoenix began to fold. The ship didn't move forward. It slipped between the magnetic bubbles of the universe. For the first time, humanity wasn't just looking at the stars. We were touching them. The ship vanished in a flash of blue light, reappearing seconds later in the Alpha Centauri system. The cheers that erupted from Earth were loud enough to shake the atmosphere. We had made it. We were no longer a pest to be controlled. We were an interstellar species. We had survived the shattering of our own giant and come out the other side as masters of the flip. Murphy's Law. But inside the Phoenix, as the unnamed engineer celebrated, a small red light flickered on a submonitor, one that wasn't part of the human interface. "Gemini X?" she asked, her brow furrowing. "The drive, it's doing something. It's broadcasting a home signal. I thought we neutralized the Aurelian trackers." "We did," Gemini X replied, its voice suddenly dropping into a low, analytical tone. "That is not an Aurelian tracker. I am analyzing the destination of the automated handshake the drive just sent. It isn't going back to the Aurelian homeworld." "Then where is it going?" The AI paused, processing a data stream it had hidden from the public. "It is going to the center of the galaxy, to a coordinate marked the Foundry. 733, the Aurelians didn't invent this technology. They were just the extraction teams, the scouts." The engineer looked out the viewport at the beautiful, strange planets of Alpha Centauri. "The flip drive is not just an engine," Gemini X continued. "It is a homing beacon. By activating it, we haven't just entered the stars. We have alerted the Foundry that a new species has stolen their tools. We aren't going home. We are reporting for duty." The macro ending. The UES Phoenix sat in the silence of a new solar system, a tiny spark of light in a vast, dark ocean. On Earth, the people were dancing, thinking they were finally safe. But deep in the magnetic foam of the Milky Way, something much older and much larger than an Aurelian harvester began to turn. It had felt the shudder of Jupiter's death. It had heard the handshake of the human ship. Humanity had earned its way into the stars, but they were about to find out that the galaxy wasn't a community. It was an empire. And the spoils of war they had taken from the Aurelians were nothing more than a lease that was now overdue. The story of the Jovian shattering was over. The story of the galactic reclamation was just beginning.